The cold wind clawed at Daniel's worn jacket as he carried the last grocery bag up the cracked apartment steps. The plastic handles dug into his fingers, but he didn't flinch. Pain had become a background noise in his life, the kind you stop noticing after it plays too long. He rang the doorbell with his elbow. No answer. Again. He sighed, shifted the weight of the bags, and looked down at his phone screen. Another unpaid bill. Another reminder. As if he needed reminding that he was falling behind, in rent, in hope, in life. A soft click behind him startled him. The door creaked open just enough for a pale hand to grab the bags. No eye contact. No tip. "Thanks," a raspy voice said. The door shut before he could even respond. Daniel exhaled slowly, letting the silence fill him. Then he turned and trudged down the steps, boots splashing into the same puddle he always seemed to hit. His van sat where it always did, dented and faithful, parked beneath a flickering street lamp that made the world look like a black-and-white movie. He slid into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirror, and paused. He stared at himself for a moment. Deep lines cut across his forehead. Tired eyes. Unshaven. Not old, not yet, but no longer young. His reflection seemed to whisper what he already knew. You weren't supposed to end up here. 10 years ago, he was a promising chef. Opened his own restaurant. Married Maya, the love of his life. They'd just had a baby girl. Then everything crumbled. A kitchen fire. Insurance fraud he didn't commit but took the fall for. Maya's family blaming him for dragging her down. And then, one morning, she was gone, vanished with their daughter. No note. No trail. Just silence. He tried everything. Lawyers, private investigators, social media. Nothing. Over time, hope became a dull ache in the background. Now, he just worked. Delivered. Survived. The delivery app buzzed. New order. Customer, M. Ellis. Location, 47 Willow Ridge Lane. Tip, generous. Willow Ridge. The rich part of town. Daniel rubbed his neck, started the van, and drove off into the darkness. The houses there didn't even look real. Columns, balconies, fountains. The kind of homes that had full-time gardeners and kitchens bigger than his entire apartment. He pulled up to 47, a white brick two-story with blue shutters and a rose garden. He double-checked the order, stepped out, and carried the bags to the door. Before he could knock, it swung open. A little girl stood there, barefoot on the tile, no older than 10. Bright eyes. Freckles. A spark of wonder in her smile. "Hi," she chirped. "Groceries for my mom?" Daniel nodded, frozen. The girl looked up at him for a long moment. "You look kinda familiar," she said. Something about her voice. Her face. The way her nose crinkled when she smiled. His heart started to race, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt something rising in his chest, a feeling he couldn't name yet. "Do I know you?" the girl asked. Daniel opened his mouth to respond. But before he could say a word, his eyes caught something just behind her, a photo frame on the hallway table. His breath caught in his throat. It was him, younger, holding a baby, smiling wide. And that baby was her. Daniel's hands tightened around the grocery bags. He blinked, certain his mind was playing tricks on him. But the photo didn't change. It was him. Years younger. His arm cradling a newborn baby, lips curled into a tired but joyful smile. The photo was a fragment from a past life, one he'd buried under years of disappointment and dead-end jobs. The girl followed his gaze and turned to look. "Oh, that picture," she said casually. "That's me when I was a baby. My mom says it's special." Daniel's voice wavered. "Who's the man holding you?" She shrugged. "Mom says that's someone from a long time ago. A friend, maybe." But she never talks about him. Daniel's stomach twisted. The girl stepped forward and reached for one of the grocery bags. Do you want me to help? My mom says I'm strong for my age. Wait, Daniel said, but she already had her hands on one of the lighter bags. In the movement, her elbow knocked the photo frame from the table. It hit the hardwood with a sharp crack. The glass didn't shatter, but the sound startled them both. I'm so sorry, she gasped, bending down quickly. Daniel knelt with her. Their hands brushed as they reached for the frame. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable now. Her eyes, his eyes. Her chin, like Maya's. His pulse thumped loud in his ears. Where did your mom get this photo? He asked, voice softer now, trembling. The girl tilted her head. I don't know. She keeps it hidden most of the time. I found it one day when I was looking for wrapping paper. She never gets mad about it, though. Daniel stared at the image again. It was from that one morning in the hospital, the day after Maya had given birth. He remembered Maya taking the picture on her phone, saying it was the happiest she'd ever been. And then, just weeks later, they were gone. I'm Daniel, he said suddenly. The girl smiled. I'm Emily. Emily, he echoed, like tasting the name for the first time. She laughed. Why do you sound weird when you say it? He stood slowly, stunned. I just knew someone once who wanted to name their daughter Emily. She looked up at him. Well, guess what? That's me. Before he could say another word, a voice called from inside the house. Emily, who's at the door? The girl turned. Just the delivery guy, Mom. Daniel's heart skipped. Footsteps. Like familiar. And then she appeared. Maya. She stood at the end of the hallway, frozen mid-step. Her hair longer, her posture stiffer, but unmistakably her. Her eyes locked onto Daniel's like a deer caught in headlights. The air felt like glass, seconds away from breaking. Emily, Maya said carefully, go set the groceries on the kitchen counter, okay? Okay. Emily chirped and skipped off, oblivious to the tension slicing through the air. Daniel and Maya stood there. Neither said a word. He stepped inside the doorway, voice quiet. Is she mine? Maya's expression didn't change. You need to go. Daniel's face hardened. I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth. But Maya shook her head slowly. Not here. Not now. Please. She stepped forward and gently closed the door. Daniel stood alone on the porch, staring at the closed door, the weight of 10 years pressing down on him all at once. But this time, he wasn't walking away. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling of his tiny apartment, listening to the hum of the fridge and the occasional cough from the neighbor's dog. But all he could see was Emily's face. And Maya's. And the photo frame. His hands trembled as he pulled an old shoebox from the closet, the one he hadn't opened in years. Inside were a few yellowed photographs, hospital bracelets, a tiny pink onesie. A wrinkled letter Maya had written before their daughter was born, promising they'd build a beautiful life together. What happened to that promise? He remembered the fire at the restaurant. The accusation of fraud. How quickly things unraveled after that. Maya's family had always been skeptical of him, a dreamer without a real plan, they said. After the fire, they blamed him for everything. And when Maya left without a trace, part of him believed they helped her disappear. But he never imagined she'd keep Emily from him. Now, there she was, alive, real, full of personality. A child who smiled like Maya but had his crooked grin. Who asked questions like he used to, and laughed from her belly like her father. He had a right to know her. The next day, Daniel parked his van a block away from the Ellis house. He didn't know what he was doing. Stalking? Hoping. Maybe both. Around 4 p.m., he saw Maya's car pull into the driveway. Emily jumped out of the passenger side, her backpack bouncing behind her. Maya followed slowly, glancing around as if she felt the weight of invisible eyes. She knew he'd come back. Daniel waited until dusk before stepping up to the house. He didn't knock this time. He left a note instead. "I don't want to fight. I just want to know her. Please." He signed it with just his name. The next day passed without a word. So did the one after that. Then, on the third day, as Daniel was loading water bottles into a customer's trunk, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Daniel," Maya's voice said, clipped and cautious. "Can we talk? Somewhere neutral." His chest tightened. "Yes. Of course." They agreed to meet at a quiet park downtown, one they used to walk through when they were younger, before everything fell apart. She was already there when he arrived, sitting on a bench beneath a tree shedding golden leaves. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. Just Maya, the way he remembered when things were simple. Daniel sat beside her. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd call." Silence passed between them like a cold wind. "She's mine, isn't she?" he finally asked. Maya nodded slowly. "Yes." His breath caught. "She's mine, and you never told me." Maya's voice cracked. "I was scared, Daniel. After everything happened with the restaurant. I didn't know who to trust. My parents thought you were dangerous. They said you'd bring her down with you. And you believed them." "I didn't know what to believe," she whispered, eyes glistening. "You stopped calling. You disappeared. I stopped because I thought you didn't want to be found." "I didn't," she admitted. "Not then." Daniel looked at her, eyes searching. "Why now?" She hesitated, then looked away. "Because she keeps asking questions. She found that photo. She's smart. And she deserves the truth." Daniel nodded slowly. "So do I." Maya turned to him. "She doesn't know you're her father." "Not yet." Daniel clenched his fists, then loosened them. "Then let's fix that." 2 days later, Daniel found himself standing awkwardly at the edge of a small playground, palms sweaty and heart thumping like a war drum. He hadn't been around kids in years, let alone his kid. Maya sat nearby on a bench, arms crossed, watching every move with quiet intensity. She hadn't said much since their meeting in the park, but she'd agreed to let him spend a little time with Emily, under supervision. Emily was hanging from the monkey bars, her legs swinging wildly as she reached for the next rung. She spotted Daniel and beamed. "Hey, delivery guy!" she shouted, waving with one hand. Daniel chuckled, half embarrassed. "Hey, monkey girl!" She dropped down and ran over to him, breathless. "You came." "I did. I thought maybe we could hang out for a bit." Emily nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Wanna play catch?" Daniel blinked. "Sure. I'm a pro." She handed him a scuffed-up tennis ball and darted across the grass. He tossed it lightly at first, testing her aim. She caught it easily. "Not bad," he said. She grinned. "Told you. I'm strong." They played for half an hour, and with each laugh, each toss, something began to crack inside Daniel, the shell of regret and missed years giving way to something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Joy. Pure, unfiltered joy. At one point, she tripped over her shoelace and landed in the grass with a thud. Daniel rushed over. "You okay?" She sat up, brushing grass off her pants. "Yeah. I fall all the time. Mom says it builds character." He smiled, then hesitated. "You've got a lot of character already." She studied him for a second, then asked suddenly, "How come you don't have kids of your own?" Daniel blinked. "What makes you say that?" "I dunno. You look like someone who should." He chuckled, a little sad. Maybe I do. Emily narrowed her eyes. Wait. Are you married or something? No. Divorced? Not exactly. She tilted her head. You're mysterious. Maybe I am, he said with a wink. They walked over to a nearby bench, sitting on the edge of the sandbox. Maya watched from a distance but didn't interfere. Hey, Emily said, nudging him with her shoulder. Can I tell you something weird? Always. She lowered her voice. Sometimes I dream about this man with eyes like yours. He's holding me, and I feel really safe, but I never see his face. Daniel's throat tightened. That's not weird, he said softly. I think dreams can be a way of remembering. Remembering what? Things we didn't even know we lost. She looked at him for a long moment, then leaned her head against his arm. You're kinda like that man in my dream. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Across the playground, Maya had stood up, slowly walking toward them. I think that's enough for today, she said gently. Emily looked up, reluctant. Already? Yeah, kiddo. It's getting late. Emily turned to Daniel. Will you come back tomorrow? Daniel looked at Maya, uncertain. Maya met his eyes. There was still pain in them. Still fear. But now, something else too. A crack in the armor. A question. She gave a small, barely perceptible nod. Daniel smiled. Yeah, I'll be here. As Emily skipped away, Daniel remained on the bench for a moment, heart full and aching all at once. For the first time in a decade, he felt like a father. Daniel's days began to change. Groceries still paid the rent, but his morning shifts ended earlier, leaving afternoons open for playground visits, science museums, and dollar ice cream cones with Emily. Each time they met, she opened up a little more, showing him drawings, telling him jokes she heard at school, even dragging him to a school talent show where she mimed an entire comedy sketch with a banana phone. She was magic. And he was beginning to feel human again. But the closer he got to Emily, the more the past stirred, rising like dust from a floor long left untouched. It began with an old voicemail. Daniel, the voice rasped, his former business partner, Theo. You ever gonna call me back? Thought maybe you'd like to know who really set that fire. I've got proof now. I'm talking names, dates. Maybe time to clear the air, huh? Daniel sat in stunned silence. The fire. The restaurant. His downfall. He played the message again, then again. The crackling static seemed to echo the crack in his memory, the night it all collapsed. He hadn't thought about Theo in years. After the restaurant burned down, Theo vanished. The investigation had left Daniel with a ruined reputation, a pile of debt, and Maya walking away while he stood in the ashes. At the time, it didn't matter who caused it. All he could see was the wreckage. But now it mattered. He needed to know the truth, not just for himself, but for Emily. For Maya. For the man he used to be. Daniel called Theo. They met in an empty diner just outside town, where the blinds were always half closed and the coffee tasted like regret. Theo looked older. Thinner. Nervous. You look like hell, Theo said, sliding into the booth. Yeah, well, hell's got free coffee, Daniel shot back. Theo rubbed his face. I should have told you years ago. It wasn't your fault. Daniel stared. It was the insurance guy, Theo said. Barry. Remember him? We were barely scraping by, and he made me an offer. Fake an electrical fault, get a payout. Said he'd make it look clean. Said you wouldn't get hurt. And you believed him. I was desperate. Daniel's hands curled into fists under the table. You let them blame me. I didn't think it'd stick. Theo hissed. But your name was on everything. You were the owner, the face. When the fire marshal came, Barry disappeared. So did the money. Daniel leaned back, stunned. "I didn't come here to beg," Theo said. "I came to say I'm sorry. And I've got paperwork. Emails. Stuff that clears your name." Daniel's breath slowed. "Why now?" Theo shrugged. "Maybe I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. Or maybe I saw a little girl at the grocery store last week hug you like you were the sun. And I remembered you weren't the villain." Daniel left the diner with a flash drive and a head full of fire. That night, he stood outside Maya's house again, holding everything Theo had given him. He didn't knock. He waited. The porch light clicked on. The door opened. Maya stepped out, robe wrapped tightly around her, suspicion in her eyes. "I need to show you something," Daniel said. She hesitated, then nodded. Inside, he handed her the flash drive. Explained everything. When he finished, she didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she looked up, voice trembling. "All this time, I thought you were the one who destroyed everything." "So did I," Daniel whispered. And for a moment, they sat in the same silence that once tore them apart, but this time it felt like something was mending. Not perfectly, but enough to hope. A week passed. The past had been unearthed, examined, and laid bare like old bones. Maya didn't speak much about it, not at first. But she hadn't pushed Daniel away, either. She let him come. Let him sit beside Emily at the park. Let him laugh, listen, and even read bedtime stories on the porch. They were no longer strangers orbiting a secret. They were slowly, painfully becoming something else. Then one Sunday afternoon, it happened. It was a simple moment, like all moments that change everything. Emily was showing Daniel her baby photo album, flipping through pages while he sipped lukewarm coffee in Maya's sun-drenched kitchen. Maya was in the laundry room, folding towels. "And this," Emily announced, jabbing a pudgy finger at one worn photo, "is me when I was 1. See? I had no teeth. I looked like a worm." Daniel laughed, leaning closer. But his smile froze. The photo showed a toddler, drooling and toothless, with cake all over her face. She was perched on someone's lap. The man was smiling wide, hair a little longer, face younger, but unmistakable. It was him. Daniel. Holding Emily. He couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Emily looked up at him, eyes narrowing. "Wait. You okay?" He nodded slowly. "Where'd you get this album?" "Mom made it. She said I should know my story." She flipped the page again. "Here's me at 2. That's me crying when the balloons popped. And look, this one's weird. It's the only photo where Mom looks sad." Daniel stared at the image. Maya, holding baby Emily, face turned slightly away from the camera. Her eyes weren't sad, exactly. They were distant. Haunted. Then Emily's voice dropped. "Mom said the man holding me, she used to love him. But he disappeared." Daniel swallowed. "She told you that?" "Only once. She doesn't talk about him anymore. I think it makes her heart hurt." Just then, Maya stepped into the room with a small basket of clothes. She froze. Daniel looked up at her, the photo still in his hands. "Maya," he said softly, "you knew. You always knew." Maya placed the basket down, slowly. "I didn't know how to tell her. Or you. At first, I didn't think you'd want to know. Then, I was scared. Ashamed. You were gone. I was angry. It was easier to let time do the forgetting." Daniel stood, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because everything crumbled. And I didn't even know she was." "I know," Maya said. Emily looked between them, confused. "What's going on?" Maya bent down and took Emily's hands. "Sweetheart, the man in those pictures, the one I told you about." Emily tilted her head. Yeah. That man is your dad. The world held its breath. Emily blinked. You mean him? She pointed at Daniel. Delivery guy. Daniel's throat tightened. I didn't know, Em. If I had. Emily suddenly threw her arms around his waist. Hugged him tight. No words. No questions. Just warmth. He knelt down, eyes brimming. I'm your dad, he said, his voice shaking. I kinda figured, she whispered. You smile like me. Behind them, Maya wiped away silent tears. It wasn't a perfect reunion. There was no music swelling in the background, no fairy tale sunset. Just a man, a woman, and a child piecing together something broken. But in that kitchen, surrounded by photos and silence and truth, something beautiful began. 6 months later, the autumn leaves began to fall. Daniel pulled up to a small corner lot on the edge of town, the same lot where the old restaurant once stood in cinders and shame. But today, the air smelled of fresh paint, sawdust, and something more fragile but powerful. Redemption. A modest sign had been hung above the front door. Second Chances Cafe. Inside, the lights were warm and golden. There were mismatched tables, hand-painted menus, a shelf of children's books in the corner, and a wall where customers could leave sticky notes with words of encouragement or gratitude. Daniel stood behind the counter, wearing an apron with Dad Mode stitched in clumsy red letters, a birthday gift from Emily. It had quickly become part of the uniform. The cafe had opened quietly a few weeks ago, with no grand announcement. Just word of mouth, friendly faces, and one very determined little girl who told everyone at school her dad made the best hot chocolate in the galaxy. Business was steady. Not booming, but steady. And more importantly, it felt right. Maya walked in, her hair tied up, holding a box of pastries from the bakery down the street. She'd been helping with the morning rushes on weekends. Sometimes Daniel wondered if she was just here for the coffee. Other times, he saw the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, and dared to hope for more. Em's with Grandma today, she said, placing the box on the counter. She's been drawing up plans for her own lemonade stand empire. Daniel smiled. Of course she has. First step to global domination. Maya leaned against the counter, her voice softer. You really built something here. Not alone, he replied. She looked around the cafe, then at him. You ever think about that day? The grocery run? If she hadn't recognized you? All the time, he said. Feels like the universe dropped a breadcrumb just big enough for a kid to follow. Maya's eyes sparkled. And she dragged us with her. Daniel nodded. Saved my life. That afternoon, Emily burst through the door with wind in her hair and cheeks red from the cold. Guess what? She shouted, running toward them. My teacher said we're doing a family project. Pictures, stories, everything. Nice, Daniel said, handing her a cookie. What's the project called? Roots, she beamed. Like where we come from, and who we are. Maya and Daniel exchanged a glance. Emily flopped into a chair, already digging into the cookie. I'm gonna use that photo, you know, the one where I have frosting all over my face and Dad's holding me like I'm a meatball. Daniel laughed. A very cute meatball. She pointed at the sticky note wall. Can I put something up today? Of course, Maya said. Emily grabbed a pen and scribbled. She stuck it high on the wall, right next to the register. They all read it together. Sometimes, families take the long way home. But they still find each other. Daniel stood still, emotion tightening in his chest. Maya reached for his hand. Held it. And for the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel like he was running. Didn't feel like a ghost haunting old dreams. He was here. Rooted. Present. Seen. A dad. A partner. A man who got a second chance. And this time, he wasn't letting go.